Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Chapter 21. Of course, Jason didn't know what happened to Tony Stark in the oil country. He just knows. A man of luck like Tony Stark would definitely not die so easily. There was nothing else to do, and his old man went out to do chivalry again. He could only return to the laboratory again. After all, he just got lucky and learned the technology of steel battle suit from Tony Stark. This made him very impatient. Who doesn't want a steel battle suit of their own? It's just a person who has this kind of dream. Now that he can realize it, he will naturally realize it. Skynet, create a file, codenamed Mark 5. File creation has been completed. Please enter the content. The main body is divided into two parts, the energy part and the armor part. After feeling the vast amount of information in his mind, Jason thought for a moment and said, I have to say, Tony Stark is really a genius. With a mortal body, he can stand up to the gods. This is not just talk. In the steel armor, many things are black technologies across the ages. Take the defensive ability of steel armor as an example. This is something very incredible. In real life, physical defense also has limits. For example, authentic military body armor is very heavy. On top of the body armor, there are various protective ceramic plates and protective steel plates. The purpose is to offset the powerful kinetic energy of the bullet. Even if an ordinary bulletproof vest blocks a bullet, the powerful kinetic energy of the bullet will also cause a great impact on the human body. The same goes for steel armor. To block an attack, consider the impact. A layer of alloy armor with a thickness of only a few centimeters may be able to block frontal bombardment from a tank's main gun. But how to mitigate the impact of artillery shells is a very big problem. If it is not handled well, the person inside the steel armor will be directly beaten into a puddle of flesh by the impact. And this is an insignificant part of the black technology of steel armor. Other black technologies include acceleration buffering, energy weapons, cold nuclear fusion, medium-less propulsion engines, global non-segment real-time communications, and so on. Even Jason's technology comes from direct infusion of the system. It also took a long time to sort out these technologies. Wait until he inputs the technical skills into Skynet by category and creates a file. Jason said after all preparations were completed. Open archive, energy system, cold fusion arc reactor. Jason said carefully. What technology is the most black technology in Tony Stark's steel armor? There is no doubt that it is an arc reactor, which belongs to the category of controllable miniature cold fusion. How awesome is this thing? For example, a reactor the size of a fist file can instantly generate as much energy as a quarter of an arc reactor. This is a very scary concept. Mastering this technology means that only a few dozen arc reactors are needed across the country to meet the country's electricity needs. What an amazing technology. It is no exaggeration to say that based on the technological level of his previous life, the arc reactor would have been at least 1,000 years ahead of the world. Not to mention, this invincible miniature energy can also be used in aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, spaceships, weapons, etc. In Jason's opinion, the value of the steel armor is not as high as the value of the arc reactor. Therefore, his first project was the arc reactor. However, this reaction is very difficult to create. Don't look at it. Tony Stark made this thing in a cave with ease. But there is a scientist in the movie who said it well. That's Tony Stark, someone who can rely on his own technology to fight against alien warlords with a population of tens of billions and control of hundreds of planets. Sometimes Jason even had doubts that Tony Stark was the man who cheated. Fortunately, it was actually him who cheated. Shaking his head to get rid of the envy in his mind, Jason spoke. Skynet, order a few tons of palladium metal. Yes, Master. Jason nodded with satisfaction after hearing the reply. Although palladium is a precious metal, it can be used in many fields such as aerospace, energy, and automobiles. But the price is not high, cheaper than gold. For him, who was born into the Wayne family, it was incredibly cheap. Naturally, he ordered more. As for the new elements used in future generations of steel battle suits, Jason feels it is completely unnecessary. That unlucky guy Tony Stark was poisoned by palladium metal only because he had the arc reactor in his body. He has no such worries. War Machine uses steel armor every day and still has no problems. The high level of energy used by the first generation and mass-produced version, which was quickly eliminated, was too wasteful. Palladium metal is cheap, isn't it delicious? Unlike Tony Stark, who likes to show off, Jason prefers to work behind the scenes. That custom-made steel battle suit like Tony Stark's would be a bit inappropriate. With Skynet, like Ultron, building an army of mechas is his best choice. In the end, he only built himself a nano armor, which was enough. Wait until he has accumulated his armor for a few years. He is not afraid even if Thanos comes. Wouldn't he be happy if he could just overwhelm Thanos with a massive army of steel armors? Thinking of this, Jason chuckled. Establishing a controllable miniature cold fusion reactor production line. Secretly buying a piece of land in Africa to build a factory. Archive this file as top secret and prohibit others from reading it. Open the laboratory and prepare for the initial manufacturing of a controllable miniature cold fusion reactor. Order a 5-axis simultaneous processing machine tool from the Wayne Group machine tool department. The laboratory has divided a special area to establish the Tokmak Strong magnetic confinement device. A series of commands were issued from Jason's mouth. Under the efficient arrangements of Skynet, it was quickly implemented. For a scientist, having an artificial intelligence like Skynet is very worry-free. After a pause, Jason continued. Load technical template. Design diagram of projecting controllable miniature cold fusion. Jason gave an order, and a huge amount of projection appeared in the laboratory. Just like when Tony Stark developed new elements. Jason wants to make an arc reactor. Artificial intelligence must also be used to conduct advanced simulations. This can eliminate many completely unnecessary experimental procedures. While manipulating the virtual projection in front of him, Jason realized the technology in his mind. Sometimes even a few parameters are entered into the system to adjust the structure of some arc reactors. The technology provided by the system is enhanced technology based on Tony Stark's second-generation arc reactor. The energy output efficiency is higher and more stable. It is not that easy to achieve this using existing technology. Chapter 22. A technology never develops alone. The development of technology relies on the entire scientific system. Those technologies that can surpass the existing system in a single aspect and can be realized are called black technologies. Tony Stark's steel armor is undoubtedly a piece of black technology. What is even more technologically advanced about the iron armor is the arc reactor, the core of the iron armor. The arc reactor is essentially a controllable miniature cold fusion technology. It is a type of nuclear fusion. Why is it so difficult to achieve nuclear fusion? This starts with nuclear fusion. All human electrical energy systems originate from a great scientist, Faraday. It was Faraday, the master who left his name in physics, who discovered the connection between electromagnetism. Human beings invented magnetic power generation. All existing power generation devices are inseparable from magnetic power generation. Even China's nuclear reactors use this device. The clever point of a nuclear power plant is that it is actually a device that uses nuclear energy to heat water and then uses steam to drive a generator. And here lies the difficulty. The only nuclear fusion method currently available to humans is the hydrogen bomb. Atomic bombs are used to ignite the fusion reaction of atoms, allowing atoms to undergo nuclear fusion and emit huge amounts of energy. If you want to use nuclear fusion, you must be able to restrain the explosion of a hydrogen bomb. You can imagine how painful this is. Although the fusion reaction raw materials used in the nuclear fusion device used in the laboratory are definitely not as much as those used in hydrogen bombs. But it was also a high temperature of hundreds of millions. Even worse than the core temperature of the sun. So nuclear fusion is also called artificial sun. However, this is only the technology required for controllable nuclear fusion. The technology required for miniature cold fusion is even more amazing. Among them, cotton bolls have several difficulties. First, how to produce nuclear fusion reaction at room temperature. Second, how miniature controllable fusion converts fusion energy into electrical energy. Third, what materials can be used to withstand this energy change. These are all things that need to be considered. So Tony Stark built a small arc reactor in a cave, which is simply not something humans can do. Fortunately, the conditions Jason has are not so harsh. With the support of Wayne Group, he has enough black technology materials. Skynet, building a model of the magnetic field inside the tokamak device. Simulating magnetic field motion in a small, controllable nuclear fusion device. Nuclear fusion is essentially the integration process of atomic nuclei. Two light cores integrate to form a heavy core and an extremely light core. During this process, part of the nuclear material is converted into photons. That is energy. Generally speaking, this energy is completely uncontrollable. After integrating, it will be completely emitted. The core of controllable nuclear fusion is how to control this part of photons. The arc-shaped arc reactor uses magnetic confinement to restrain this energy. Skynet records the experimental principles. Photons produced by nuclear fusion have extremely high energy. According to the essence of electromagnetic force, it is the exchange of photons. We can interfere with the photons produced by nuclear fusion to a certain extent, and then let them spontaneously form an electromagnetic field. Confining photons produced by nuclear fusion using spontaneously formed electromagnetic fields. Jason coughed and stopped recording. The most genius thing about Tony Stark. It uses the photon energy generated by nuclear fusion itself for magnetic confinement. Saves a lot of space. This also paved the way for the miniaturization of nuclear fusion reactors. It may be difficult for him to reach such heights. With a sigh, Jason continued. Skynet continues recording. Establishing a magnetic field cutting device on the periphery of a small nuclear fusion reactor. Intrinsic power generation using originally electromagnetic fields. How powerful is the ability produced by nuclear fusion? The electromagnetic field it generates has very strong binding force. Otherwise, the huge energy of nuclear fusion cannot be restrained. The amount of electricity generated depends on the amount of cutting magnetic induction. The file size of the magnetic induction quantity depends on the file size of the magnetic field. As for large magnetic fields, arc reactors are not lacking at all. In this way, there is no problem with huge power generation. The biggest problem facing Jason now is how to solve the interference of the magnetic field on the outside world and how to achieve nuclear fusion under normal temperature conditions. After thinking for a while, Jason continued to speak. Using iron oxide high-purity silicon diamagnetic confinement materials to neutralize the magnetic field generated by the reactor. At the same time, it has a protective effect on the reactor. The hardest part of the steel armor is actually not the original of the armor. It's the reactor in the center of the armor. In the movie, none of Loki's scepters penetrated Iron Man's reactor defenses. What is used as an electromagnetic principle? When the external diamagnetic material eliminates the magnetic field, it is also affected by the magnetic field. Its internal structure is getting tighter and tighter. The result is some kind of molecularly strong force material. Its intensity can even be increased infinitely. Naturally extremely hard. Jason glanced at his notes inside Skynet and nodded with satisfaction. Then he continued to speak. Cold fusion is based on the principle of entropy silence. Converting photons produced by nuclear fusion into high-energy particles that are much harder to find. Avoid generating high temperatures and endangering human beings themselves. Jason said and smiled. The reaction temperature of nuclear fusion can easily reach hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius. The surface temperature of the Sun is only 5,500 degrees Celsius, and the internal temperature is only over 20 million degrees Celsius. The plasma produced by nuclear fusion is 5 times hotter than the Sun's core. Large nuclear fusion reactors are equipped with various cooling devices on the outside. Concrete has the function of preventing both nuclear leakage and temperature leakage. Otherwise, if this high-temperature plasma leaks out, even reinforced concrete will vaporize instantly. What if Tony Stark's arc reactor wasn't cold fusion? His entire body will be instantly vaporized within 2 milliseconds. Even forming a huge amount of high-temperature heat source within the Earth. It can instantly set off a strong wind of level 12 in the core. It's a mobile hydrogen bomb. Fortunately, Tony Stark is not the kind of person who likes to seek death. He solved this problem in an ingenious way. The process of nuclear fusion does not even have time to produce high-temperature plasma. It is directly converted from photons into some kind of light particles. In terms of appearance, it can only emit a weak blue light. It is simply impossible to generate enough high temperature to spread to the outside world. This is a very remarkable invention in both the theoretical and engineering fields. After running a few thoughts in his mind, the arc reactor model in front of Jason was basically completed. Looking at the arc reactor emitting true blue light in front of him, Jason smiled sincerely on his face. With this, he'll never have to worry about energy again. Buzz. Chapter 23. After creating a controllable miniature cold fusion reactor, Jason started the manufacturing process. But before creating miniature product prototypes, Jason planned to build himself a big one first. Tony Stark built a huge amount of reactor right underneath the Stark building. He calls it the arc reactor. This reactor powers his entire Stark building. The energy can even radiate to several surrounding blocks, which is very scary. Jason would naturally want to get some of these good things for himself. He had long been displeased with the several large cables several meters thick in Wayne Manor. Not only is it ugly, but the energy is also in the hands of others. Although there is no one in Gotham who dares to go against the Wayne family. But what if the Court of Owls really turns its back? Wayne Group and Wayne Manor can lose power in an instant. Then Batman can only go into battle naked. His bat suit is all in the underground garage, and it takes a lot of energy to get the battle suit out. So under the orders of the young master of the Wayne family, major construction began next door to Wayne Manor. It only took 2 days of work. He transformed what was originally a small manor into a very solid nuclear fusion reactor center. In the middle, a prototype of a large arc reactor with a diameter of more than 10 meters has been established. As long as Jason gives the order, this behemoth can run. It can even function for the entire Gotham City with ease. But Jason is not so kind. It is also impossible to leak this technology. Stark Industries developed the arc reactor several years ago. Tony Stark has also always wanted to enter the new energy industry. This is originally a good thing that benefits the country and the people. But Tony Stark ultimately had no choice but to enter the arms industry. What is this for? Naturally, it's because the Bald Eagle Empire has the largest oil company in the world. New energy sources are completely unacceptable to them. Tony Stark would be better off if not for his relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. He might have been dumped into the wilderness long ago. It's not like his father never died. So Jason, a person who values life so hard, would naturally not do such a stupid thing. So after completing the manufacturing of the arc's reactivity, Jason once again plunged into the newly built industrial laboratory. The prototype of the steel armor has been manufactured. It also requires maintenance from him. However, while he was still in the laboratory, a man came directly to the door. Oh my God. What is this? As soon as Jason heard this exaggerated voice, he knew it was the old man from Fox. At the moment he was lying in front of the arc reactor and marveling. The look in arc reactor's eyes was extremely obsessed, as if he was seeing a beautiful woman without any clothes on. Jason, this is going to be. Fox looked at Jason and felt a little embarrassed when he spoke. Yes, this is the arc reactor. Jason said extremely calmly. How do you know this technology? Isn't this Tony Stark's core technology? When did you build this whole great thing? How did you do your research? Fox's mouth was like a barrage of fire. He kept asking questions. Jason's scalp went numb when he heard it, and he waved his hand quickly. Fox, how do I answer your many questions? Let me answer your first question first. This is truly Tony Stark's technology. Then how did you obtain it? This is a very powerful technology. I think at the beginning, I spent a while but couldn't replicate this technology. It's just too difficult, Fox said in a very sad tone. Jason sighed when he heard this and nodded in agreement. It's really difficult. It took me 3 days to fully recover him. The expression on Jason's face was very heavy. It looked as if it had taken him not 3 days but 30 years. But Fox next to him was immediately dumbfounded. He felt that the worldview he had spent decades building was once again under attack. He's not a fool. He is the technical director of Wayne Group, a multinational group. All technical staff in the entire Wayne Group are nominally his subordinates. He also personally made Batman's suit and various equipment. The Batmobile, Bat Windbreaker, Bat Suit, and all kinds of powerful equipment for dealing with various villains are all made by him. He is also the military technology advisor of the Bald Eagle Empire, a teacher at S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, etc. It can be said that he is the absolute technological master of the Bald Eagle Empire. But he studied controllable micro-cold fusion reactors for 3 years. I also observed the Stark group at close range many times, and even communicated with Tony Stark originally. Then, he found nothing. No results were achieved. Jason's arc reactor only took 3 days. Thinking of this, Fox felt 2 lines of tears in his heart. For the first time, he knew that there was such a huge gap between geniuses and mortals. Seeing Fox's whole body stiffen, Jason said sorry. The cheating life is so boring and boring. After being satisfied with himself for a long time, Jason finally asked, Fox, what are you doing here this time? I'm here for artificial intelligence technology. Fox looked at the artificial intelligence basic chip technology contract in his hand. After looking at the arc reactor in front of me, suddenly he felt that the skills in his hands were no longer good. Somewhat boring. It's not that the technology is bad. But there are delicacies from the mountains and seas in front of you, and the boiled water in your hand is just steamed buns. How can you still eat them? Thinking of this, Fox asked with some anticipation. Jason, see if we can. Cannot. Jason decisively rejected Fox. As soon as this old man sticks his ass out, he knows what he's going to do. This bad old man must have paid attention to his arc reactor. How could he agree to this? Fox, don't forget what happened to Stark Industries in the past few years. When Fox heard this, he suddenly woke up. Tony Stark also entered the new energy industry with confidence in the past few years. As a result, it was attacked by the entire old energy giant. The group's business was almost cut in half, and its stock price dropped like diabetes. In the end, if the military hadn't protected him, the entire Stark industry would have been killed by those energy giants. Wayne Group was also involved back then. He naturally knows how powerful those old energy companies are. Fox instantly dismissed the inappropriate idea. Then Jason, you can build one for Wayne Group. Fox asked directly. Can? Jason said something. But before Fox was happy enough, he added again. Wait for more money. Chapter 24. Fox thinks Jason is a really talented guy. However, there is a very humiliating shortcoming. That is a great love for money. Although Wayne Group is his family's own business, he still does not give any discount to Wayne Group. No matter how close the brothers are, they have to settle their accounts clearly. This seems very strange to Fox. He could only blame it on the quirks of genius. Jason, this matter cannot be decided until a board meeting. We'll discuss it some other time. Fox took a breath and said. Oh sure. Jason nodded. Grandpa Alfred will discuss it with you then. Alfred is the personal butler of the Wayne family, and he can negotiate this kind of business cooperation. What are you still doing here? Jason frowned and looked at Fox in front of him. This old man has finished the business deal, why is he still here? Fox also looked at the brat in front of him speechlessly. He serves as the chief technology officer of Wayne Group, the central henchman of the Wayne family. Even Bruce Wayne was always polite to him. The boy in front of me was simply arrogant. However, I thought about their abilities. Fox decided to endure it. Fox forced a bright smile on his face and said, Jason, can I take a look at your research here? Jason looked at Fox and thought for a moment. Fox is the chief technology officer of Wayne Group and a devoted man of the Wayne family. He made Bruce Wayne's batsuit. I think it's very reliable. It's not impossible to let him take a look at his research. Okay, don't touch things. When Fox heard Jason's words, he couldn't help but think of what he said to him when he was still a student. He seemed to be a poor and helpless graduate student again. Just look at the arc reactor next to it, and think about it. It only took Jason 3 days to develop this technology. Fox was suddenly speechless. He could only nod his head obediently. Seeing Fox's performance, Jason was very satisfied and turned around to start his own research. The modeling of the steel armor has actually been completed, and the processing of 0+ has been completed. Now only the assembly is left. And his laboratory was built for this purpose. Among them are fully automatic industrial robots. Similar to the robots Tony Stark used to build the Iron Suit. It is a completely automatic device, operated automatically by Skynet. After looking at the drawings in front of him and seeing that there were no mistakes or omissions, Jason spoke directly. Skynet, start assembly. Assembly process starts. Skynet's voice rang in front of him. Then several large industrial robots rose from the ground. Tens of thousands of small parts were assembled into a white and black armor under the operation of industrial robots. Plus the bells and whistles Jason modified on it. This armor doesn't look like a steel armor, but like an armored warrior. What is this? Fox couldn't help but speak loudly again. As a developer of the Bat armor, Fox could naturally tell at a glance that it was some kind of wearable armor. Compared to the Bat armor, which can only be used purely as a defensive armor, this armor is obviously much more complete. First of all, the armor in front of you is a full-body armor, so there is no need to worry about being harmed by external forces. Moreover, he can install thin metal devices inside the armor, which should be used as a buffer. Compared with the ordinary Bat armor, the combat ability of this armor is obviously much stronger. However, the weight of a battle armor like this must be so staggering that it cannot be moved by human power. Jason, what drives this armor? It shouldn't be driven by manpower alone, right? Jason glanced at Fox in surprise. I didn't expect that this old man was quite knowledgeable. It looks like there are two brushes. This armor uses tens of thousands of micro-servo motors to provide power for the armor. Its power can even reach about 10 tons. Jason explained with a smile. This thing is not like the carbon fiber armor on Batman, but it is very heavy. Even with lightweight gold titanium alloys, weight is a big issue. At least it's not something a playboy with a weak kidney like Tony Stark can afford. This shows how smart Tony Stark is. Inside the armor, there are tens of thousands of tiny electrodes that can provide sufficient kinetic energy to the armor. And because of the existence of the arc reactor on the chest, there is no need to worry about energy issues at all. It's completely a perpetual motion machine. However, Fox didn't know this. Tens of thousands of servo motors. How is that possible? Ordinary batteries cannot support this kind of consumption, and there is no space inside the armor to store batteries. Fox asked in surprise. Look at the chest of the armor. Following the direction of Jason's finger, Fox saw a five-pointed star pattern emitting light blue light. What is this? Fox asked a little strangely. Controllable miniature cold fusion reactor. Jason asked succinctly. This is impossible, Fox said with disbelief. It is enough to believe that Jason developed the arc reactor. But it can also be miniaturized. This is incredible. After large-scale equipment is miniaturized, the required technical content increases exponentially. Fox simply doesn't think anyone can implement this technology right now. Fox, nothing is impossible in this world. Jason smiled and said. This is a high-risk world like Marvel and DC. How is it impossible? There are even gods who can destroy the universe and change the timeline at will. How is this impossible? Fox still knows too little. This is unscientific. Small fusion reactors should never exist. Existing materials simply cannot support the miniaturization of nuclear reactors. And cold fusion is generally considered a false theory and is simply impossible to achieve. Fox said with some confusion. Scientific researchers are much more stubborn than the average person. The confidence of interpretation makes it difficult for them to believe that such technology exists in the world. Fox, on the contrary, this is real science. The essence of our scientific research is to make the impossible possible. You should not be constrained by your inherent scientific biases. Existing materials can still do this. Besides, let's be practical. Jason said to Fox. Skynet, turn on full power output mode. As soon as Jason finished speaking, the arc reactor in front of him glowed brightly. The surrounding instruments began to operate crazily. Chapter 25. Jason's new laboratory is filled with piercing sirens. Under the full output of the arc reactor, the values on the energy testing device are off the charts. Fox was stunned when he saw it. How is this possible? How could something so small emit such a huge amount of energy? It's impossible for his material structure to withstand this level of energy output. Fox looked at the steel armor in front of him and said in a very excited tone. According to his scientific understanding, this is not scientific at all. Jason looked at Fox in a daze and chuckled inwardly. Fox's seriousness about science is indeed very profound. However, the arc reactor was completely technology that was ahead of its time. It is completely out of touch with existing technology. Fox looked naturally confused. Fox, the material of the arc reactor is much more powerful than you think. When the atomic structure is compact to a certain extent, the strength is naturally very amazing. Jason shook his head and explained. In general materials, there are actually gaps inside the molecules. The force between the electrons in the atomic nucleus makes the molecules and atoms of the material not so closely connected at all. And when a strong enough force acts on the material, squeeze nuclei and electrons together directly. The strength of this material is amazing. Otherwise, what else could he say? The arc reactor is the strongest part of the steel armor. Looking at Fox, his face was still a little dull. Jason said with a smile. Don't worry, I will show you the technology, and then you can study it yourself. What do you think of the armor I studied? How does it compare to the armor you developed? Jason asked very sincerely. Fox is also a master of armor. Almost all of Batman's armors come from this old man who looks very ordinary, including the armor that can fight Superman. In terms of armor, Fox is still very accomplished. Hear Jason's words. A flash of excitement flashed in Fox's eyes. Then he shook his head and said, This is not easy to compare at all. I have not studied this kind of full-body armor. The armor Bruce uses is completely different. I think your armor is not for people who are proficient in combat. Jason nodded. Indeed, Iron Man's armor was originally prepared by Tony Stark for himself. Tony Stark's fighting ability. In the beginning, it was just a little better than a fight between gangsters on the street. Later, although I found someone to train me, that was it. Fox, who is proficient in armor design, can naturally tell it at a glance. Yes, it is. This is originally a armor that focuses on protection. It is not designed for close combat at all. The attack relies entirely on the energy weapon system of the armor. Completely different from the armor that Bruce uses almost exclusively for close combat. Jason said in agreement. Batman's armor is completely different from the iron armor. As long as someone puts on the steel battle suit and trains for a few days, he can have the fighting power of Iron Man. But Batman is different. Batman was originally a fighting master, and his fighting ability was very strong among ordinary people. It can be said that the original purposes of the two armor designs are completely different. It's just that Fox doesn't have to worry about this at all. Instead, he asked curiously, Energy weapons. You mean, after installing the buffer system, this armor can actually have space to install energy weapons? Fox's face was very shocked. Things like battle armor are very large at the beginning. This is because the weapon system occupies a very large volume. Take energy weapons for example. The existing energy weapon system is basically laser weapons by default. Rely on high-energy laser to produce high-energy rays to attack enemies. Some of the smallest laser weapons that can be used by the military require a file size of several cubic meters at least. This kind of thing simply cannot be loaded on a single-player armor. This is why Fox was so shocked when Jason said there was an energy weapon system on this armor. Because according to existing science and technology, this is impossible. Jason smiled when he heard Fox's question. Indeed, this is the soul of this armor. Building such an advanced weapons system is not easy. Jason said with some emotion. The Mark series of steel armors have many and complex weapons. The plasma beam pulse weapon in the palm of the hand is also the main weapon of the armor. The power of the weapon can be determined based on the energy output file size. The Javelin 2 inches anti-armor missile on the arm has a range of 1,000 meters and can penetrate 1150-1400 m of homogeneous steel. The laser cutter on the finger is mainly used for cutting. When necessary, it consumes a lot of energy and can be used as a weapon. The short-range multi-target missile launch nest on the shoulder can launch a large number of missiles in a short period of time to kill the effective forces when being attacked at close range. It can be installed optionally. The shoulder armor has two built-in 6-unit anti-infantry launchers, which can lock and attack 12 infantry units at the same time. There are 20 additional guided bombs on the left and right sides of the crotch, which are normally stored. The front of the thigh stores 6 high-hardness warhead launchers, one on the left and one on the left, which can shoot in the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock directions at the same time. The holographic operating system switches between civilian and military states, and is taken over, assisted by the artificial intelligence JARVIS. The voice recognition system uses Tony Stark's original voice recognition. The sensor recognition is Tony Stark DNA biometric recognition, the hand recognition is fingerprint recognition, and the head recognition is pupil recognition. The wearing method is guided by infrared sensors, and the unused state is a streamlined box storage state. The combat mode is all-weather mode, and the combat time depends on the output of the reactor. It can be said that it is these rich weapons and various auxiliary systems on the steel armor that make Iron Man so powerful. And I want to put these things together on a wearable armor that is only as tall as a person. The difficulty can be imagined. Especially the main weapon of the steel armor, the plasma beam pulse weapon. Not only is it difficult to load, but it is also very difficult to design. If Fox were to come in, he would certainly not be able to design such a transcendent weapon. It's normal for Fox to be very surprised. You can probably design the other weapons on Fox's armor. But the plasma pulse beam weapon on the arm, you probably haven't seen this before. Jason smiled and said, "It's true. It's incredible to use plasma as a weapon. How do you control high-energy plasma?" Fox asked, very confused. His mind is full of questions now. I hope Jason can answer his questions. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.